So this is a lesson for R-10, which we're covering angles. So there are 5 different types of angles. You have acute angles. Acute angles are the little tiny angles. Acute angles are less than 90 degrees. You have a right angle. A right angle is exactly 90 degrees, not 89.9, not 90.1, but exactly 90. A 90-degree angle looks like the corner of a piece of paper. All right, it looks like the corner of a piece of paper. You will most likely always see a little box in that corner. That little box tells you for sure that it is a right angle. Obtuse angles. Obtuse is like the word obese. These are the big fat angles. They are in between 90 and 180. A straight angle is just a straight line. That is exactly 180 degrees. Then we have reflex angles. Reflex angles are anything that's over 180. So like 200, 250, 310, all the way up to 359.9. So those are your 5 different types of angles. The first type of angle that we're talking, wow, this board is really touchy. Wow, it's really touchy. So the first type of angle that we're going to talk about is complementary angles. Complementary angles take a right angle and divide it into 2 pieces. Complementary angles add up to 90 degrees. So for example, like 40 and 50, or you could have 70 and 20, things like that, that add up to 90 degrees. What you're going to have to do on your homework today is you're going to have questions that look like this. You're going to have to set up an equation, solve it for x, sub it back in to find those 2 angles. So when we go to set up our equation, we know that these are complementary angles. So they add up to 90 degrees. So when you go to set up your equation, you're going to set it equal to 90. Add together your x's and your x's. So 2x plus 3x gives you 5x. Add together your plus or minus your plain numbers. Now, this looks like a -6 and a -4. When we add those together, we're going to treat them as negative numbers. So -6 plus -4 is -10. But when we write it, we're going to write -10. Now that's just a 2-step equation. So we need to solve that 2-step equation. We always get rid of the plus whatever or minus whatever first. So we're going to do +10 and +10 first. Those 10s cancel out. Bring down your 5x, bring down your equal sign. 90 plus 10 is 100. Now it's just a 1-step equation. So we want to divide by 5, and you get x equals 20. Now that you got x equals 20, now we have to take that 20, sub it back in for x, and sub it back in for x to find our 2 angles. So this says 2 times x. Remember, when a number and a letter are right next to each other, that means times. So that really says 2 times x. So instead of 2 times x, we sub in our 20, which was our answer. 2 times 20 is 40. 40 minus 6 is 34. So this top angle is 34. When we sub in our 20 over here, instead of 3 times x, we have 3 times 20. 3 times 20 is 60, minus 4 gives us 56. You can always double check to make sure that your answers make sense by adding back together the 2 angles. 34 plus 56 does equal 90. So those are complementary angles. Complementary angles add up to 90. The next type, why does it keep on going twice? The next type of angles are supplementary angles. Supplementary angles take a straight angle and divide it into 2 pieces. Since it's taking a straight angle and dividing it into 2 pieces, those 2 angles add up to 180 degrees. For example, 120 and 60 add up to 180. So again, we need to set up an equation, solve for x, and sub it back in. Anytime that you have a letter all by itself, there's really a 1 in front of it. So when we go to add together our 3x and our 1x, we get 4x. Then we have a minus 40. We don't have anything with this one, so it's just minus 40. These are supplementary angles, so they add up to 180 degrees. So equals 180. There's your two-step equation. That's what we're going to solve now. So plus 40 to get that 4x all by itself. So 4x equals 220. Divide by 4, divide by 4, and you get x equals 55. Take that 55, sub it back in, sub it back in. So 3 times 55 instead of 3 times x, and then minus 40. 3 times 55 minus 40 gives you 125. For the other angle, we just have 1 times x, or 1 times 55. 1 times 55 is 55. Again, you can always double check to make sure that your answer makes sense. 125 plus 55 does give you 180. Now that was supplementary angles divided into 2 pieces. You can also have supplementary angles divided into 3 pieces. So this time we're taking that straight angle and dividing it into 3 pieces instead. 60 plus 80 plus 40 does give you still 180. So instead of taking 2 of these angles and adding them together, we're taking 3 of them. So you want to add together your x's, and your x's, and then your plane number, and plane number. So 4x plus 5x plus 3x gives you 12x. 15 plus 14 plus negative 5, make sure you pay attention to the sign that's in front of it, gives you 24. And these are supplementary angles that add up to 180. So that's the equation that you're going to set up. Solve for x, so minus 24, we always get rid of the plus whatever or minus whatever first. So we have 12x equals 156. Divide by 12, and you get x equals 13. No. I think you did a positive 5 instead of a negative 5. Take that, sub it back in, sub it back in, sub it back in. When you go to sub it back in, you would get a 67, you would get a 79, and you'd get a 34. So again, you need to set up your equation, solve it for x, and sub it back in. Let's take a look at the next one. I got to figure out why that board is doing that. So when we take a look at vertical angles form an X. All right, vertical angles form an X. So the top and bottom of the X are the same, and the left and the right of the X are the same. So when you have these two angles are equal to each other, that left and the right. The top and the bottom of the X here in the blue are equal to each other as well. So what I did when I taught this originally to you back a couple months ago was to, hey, gotta figure out why that's doing that. So what I did a couple months ago was to help you set up your equations. If you put an equal sign right in the middle, that will help you set up your equation. So when you go to solve this equation and go to set it up, if you put an equal sign, that is your exact equation that you want to solve. All you have to do is recopy it. So x plus 28 equals 13x minus 8. That's the nice little thing with vertical angles. It helps you set up your equation just by putting that equal sign right in the middle. Now, in this one, we have letters on both sides of the equal sign. Anytime that you have a letter all by itself, there's really a 1 in front of it. We need to get all the letters onto one side first. So I like working with the smaller of the two letters first. You'll work with less negatives that way. So I'm going to do minus 1x and minus 1x. Those will cancel out. 28 equals 12x minus 8. Plus 8 to get that 12x all by itself. Divide by 12, and you get x equals 3. Take that 3, sub it back in. 3 times 28 is, 3 plus 28 is 31. 13 times 3 is 39, minus 8 is 31. So you get 31 and 31. So again, vertical angles are equal to each other. The next type are triangles. Any triangle. I don't care what it looks like. It could be a tall triangle, a short triangle, a fat triangle, a skinny triangle, a weird looking triangle like this one. Every single triangle, no matter what it looks like, the 3 angles add up to 180. So when we take a look at the similar triangles questions, these are your yes and your no questions. Are they similar or not similar, yes or no? You have to have 2 pairs of angles that are the same in order for it to be a yes. Not 2 angles, but 2 pairs of angles. When you take a look at this first one, you have the 89 and the 89. That's great. That's 1 pair of angles. Now it looks like you have a 46 and a 45. It looks like that would be a no, but you need to find this missing angle first. The way that we find a missing angle, since the 3 angles of a triangle add up to 180, is to take 180 and subtract out the 2 angles that you know. So 180 minus 89 minus 46 gives you 45. That's the measure of this angle. Now you can see, because they tried to trick you, now you can see that now you have 2 pairs of angles that are the same. So these are similar triangles. Your answer today for this question would be yes. In the middle one. So we have our first angles. We have our 55 and our 55. That's 1 pair of angles. Now, when you take a look at the other 2, you can't figure out the measures of the angles, but notice what we have in the middle here. Notice that we have an X. We have vertical angles. This green angle and this green angle are vertical angles. Those vertical angles are equal to each other. So now I have the pair of 55s and I have the pair of green angles. That makes our final answer a yes, because you have those 2 pairs of angles. You can't figure it out.
No, I'm talking about the first one.
Oh, this one? That's 45.
45?
180 minus 89 minus 46.
Oh, I'm bugging.
In the third one, you have a small red triangle and you have a larger black triangle. In this one, when you take a look at this angle right here, this D angle, this is what's called a shared angle. It's part of the red triangle, but it's also the same part of the black triangle. So even though there's only 1 there, it's actually part of both triangles. So that is 1 pair that's the same. Then you have this notation where you have the 2 little curves. Those 2 little curves, or I like to call them little hash marks, these are the same angle. That's what they mean. We don't know the measurement of the angle, but we know that these two are the same. Therefore, they have the shared angles that are the same. They have the two with the little curves that are the same. So this one is a yes as well. But again, in order for it to be a yes, you have to have two pairs of angles the same. The last type of question that we're going to have today is exterior angles of the triangle. These are probably the hardest ones for people to understand. What you need to remember is these two angles inside the triangle added together equal this outside angle. What the real rule says is that the exterior angle of the triangle, this one on the outside, is equal to the sum means to add together, of the remote to interior angles. So these two angles, angle 1 and angle 2, equal this angle outside equals angle 4. So let's sub in what we're told. We're told the measure of angle 4, that's what that M means. The measure of angle 4 is 72. So this angle is 72. The measure of angle 2 is 26. So this angle is 26. Find the measure of angle 1. Well, whichever one we're looking for, that's just going to be X. So when you go to set up your equation, these two angles added together, X plus 26, equals your outside angle of 72. Solve that one-step equation, minus 26 minus 26, and you get an answer of 46. When we take a look at the middle one, these two angles added together equal this outside angle. So it says the measure of angle A is 4x plus 10. So we have 4x plus 10 on the outside. The measure of angle C is 3x plus 5. The measure of angle D is 2x minus 20. So these two angles added together equal this outside angle. Add together your x's and your x's. 2x plus 3x is 5x. Negative 20 plus 5 is negative 15. And it equals that outside angle. There's your equation that you need to set up. Again, when you go to solve an equation like this that has letters on both sides, you need to add or subtract from both sides. I'm going to subtract 4x and subtract 4x. So we have 1x minus 15 equals 10 when you bring it down. Plus 15 plus 15. So we get x equals 25. When you go to sub it back in, you would get 30 for this top angle. You would get 80 over here, and you would get 110 over here. Just to save a little time, we're not going to do that last one.